Hi there, welcome back. So how are we feeling after step number 1 and step number 2 of changing your past and embracing your authentic self? Are you feeling a bit better, feeling more empowered that this life is here for you, it's supporting you the whole way? Okay, so step number 3, and it's mostly the process in this gorgeous book, Your Past is a Gift. It looks like it's on that side, but it's actually over there. All right. In Your Past is a Gift. The process I discovered, which is so beautiful, is step number 3. When we do look at others, and I'm not saying we're focusing on others, when we look at others, okay, understand that they're all on their own spiritual path. They have their own souls and they're here to have their own experiences. But step number 3 is understanding that, especially with our parents, because a lot of us, we've had quite traumatic childhoods. And so we go through life and that stays with us, that trauma and that the memories of our parents and how our childhood unfolded with them. So step number 3 for me was a big one in that book, Your Past is a Gift, because what I began to do was to look at these grown-ups, my parents, and I began to see them as the little ones. Even to this day, when I see my parents, I cannot see the grown-ups I used to see when I was little. I look at my mum and I see a 5-year-old, and I look at my dad and I see the same, another 5-year-old, because they haven't awakened. And so they're still viewing the world from the eyes of a 5-year-old. Now, to put it in context, my mum at the age of 5 lost both of her parents. They both died. So at the age of 5, she found herself without parents and moving to live with an aunt with her older sister that was 7 years old. So the two of them moved over to live with an aunt that already had a bunch of kids. And they were in South America, so it was a very poor upbringing. So they were already a burden on this aunt. But aside from, the hardship that she went through after, the big thing to take away is that at the age of 5, okay, think of yourself when you were 5 and think of where you were at the age of 5, especially if you still had your parents with you. What were you going through? What was going through your mind? Now, picture. I'll give you a minute. Now, picture yourself that you're this 5-year-old and you've been given the news that both of your parents have passed away. In one go, they're both gone. That's it. Both of your parents. How do you think you would feel? I know it's not the same as going through the experience, but how would you feel? I mean, the word devastated comes to mind. Grief-stricken comes to mind. And then you go to a home where you're beaten every second day because you're an extra mouth to feed and you're a burden on this person. And they're already struggling as it is. And that's the rest of your childhood until you leave home and you get married and you have your own children. So that's my mum's story. My dad's story. From quite young, they were born on a farm, very poor upbringing again, at the youngest age. Whenever they were capable of doing work, they were put on the farm to do work. But again, if they did anything wrong, they copped severe beatings, like severe. My parents would talk about, my dad not being able to get up from bed for 2 or 3 days at a time. Because at that time, they believed that the more severe the beating, the more you would remember not to do it next time. You would learn your lesson from it. That was the mentality. That's what they used to think at the time. So, of course, when I was growing up, I was going to be yelled at and smacked because they went through much, much worse. They copped severe beatings that they couldn't even get up from bed. I would just be sore for a couple of hours and off I'd go, with the rest of my day. So, step number 3 is to be able to see that what you went through in your childhood, the grown-ups that raised you have already been through that, or worse. Many times it was worse. You get a much softer version of what they went through. Usually it starts to get watered down from generation to generation, but this is where I'm going. What you grew up with in your childhood has been going on for generation after generation after generation. For generations, plural. We don't know how far back. So as much as we have these feelings towards these grown-ups, they went through the same. How they raised you is a learned behavior. When we're born, we're not born with this behavior that when we grow up, we're going to smack our kids or yell at our kids or sexually molest our kids or beat them to a pulp so they can't get up out of bed for 3 days or 4 days. You're not born with these instincts to do those things. These are all learned behaviors. And the moment you realize that what they did to you was done to them is the moment you can start to have compassion for them, for your parents, or for whoever raised you. You may not have been raised by your parents. But the first step in awareness for me was to understand that what I went through, they had already been through, and in their case was much worse than what I went through. And they just passed on what was done to them. Not everyone has the awareness to know that I didn't like that, so I'm not going to do it. But funny enough, my dad did. It was through him that I understood the concept, because he copped quite severe beatings as a child. And yet he never raised a hand to either me or my sister. We were never smacked by Dad, ever. He never ever even raised his voice to us. He's like the most gentle soul that you would ever meet on this planet. And wherever there's conflict, he will walk away and go in the other direction. He just wants nothing to do with arguing or yelling or any of that. He just literally walks away. I've seen him do it so many times. He'll go and start, he'll go into his shed and start tinkering around with his tools and making all this noise out there so he doesn't have to hear it. But he knew, well, I didn't like that very much, so I'm not going to do it to my kids. He already knew that. And this is always, as we talked before, a choice that you can make. But here, with step number 3, we're trying to create an awareness in you that what happened to you already happened to the people that raised you. It already happened to them. This step creates compassion within you. It begins to make you more aware of spirit, of the soul, of the journey that you're all on. This cycle's been going on for generations. So today, I know in the beginning it's hard to have compassion, but when you start to think, you try and visualize them as little ones and going through the same or worse, always the or worse. Whatever you went through, they've already been through it. And for many people that do not awaken spiritually, They don't know that they can change this pattern. They don't know. They think that this is how it is. This is normal. This is how the world functions. To them, this is how the world works. Everyone does this because this is what they've experienced. You see? Step 3 is crucial. For me, it was one of the most important steps that led me to compassion, but it leads you back to your heart as well. It reminds you that you were the love and that you are the love, but that they rejected your love. And it wasn't because of who you are. It wasn't because you did anything wrong. It was just they were just repeating the pattern that's been going on for generations. There was nothing wrong with your love in the first place. It was never about you. How they treated you, what they did to you, what they said to you was never about you. It was always about them and how they were feeling inside. Always. All right, my darlings. So step number 3. Remember that what's happened to you already happened to them. Or another way to look at step number 3 is that we express what's going on inside. So that when we hurt others, it's because we're hurting inside. We can only hurt another human being when we're in pain. All right, my darlings, I hope this sheds a little bit of light, that you can detach a little bit from it and see that it was never about you and that they'd already been through all these experiences and they were doing the best that they could possibly do at the time. That's the truth. This is all they've known and they were just doing the best they knew how. All right, my darlings? But it was never about you. You never did anything wrong. You were perfect. You were this beautiful love, here to remind them of the beautiful love they are. They're just not ready to awaken. But it doesn't mean that you can't. All right, my beautiful darlings. I love you guys. Remember to click like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the messages. And we're on to step 4. I'll see you in the next video, okay? Bye for now.